Hi everyone, Danielle here. Today I'm going to be talking with one of the developers of Age of Mythology Retold, Hagrit. Hagrit has been playing competitive Age of Mythology on the extended version of the game since 2015. He has held top 10 positions on the extended edition ladder, as well as competing in a number of high-level tournaments. These days, Hagrit is working as a technical designer for Forgotten Empires, a full-service game developer focused on Windows PC games, particularly the Age of franchise. Forgotten Empires has been involved in the gameplay, design, content, campaign, maps, pathing, and AI for Age of Mythology Retold. So, big welcome to Hagrit.
Hello. Thanks
Hi.
for having me.
No worries. Are we ready to start playing?
Yeah, I am
Cool.
ready.
I'll load the game and I'll get the questions rolling. So, how did you get started with Forgotten Empires?
So, I was looking for a job a couple years ago, and a friend of mine works at Forgotten Empires. And having played Age Mythology a lot, made me think maybe I could get a job here as well, based on my experience in the game. So that's how I got started.
So, it was pretty easy to apply and get the job then.
It was for me, yes, because as I said, I have a lot of modding and other experience in the game.
Nice. Okay, that was pretty bad vision for me that I just casted. Oh well. Um, so how long have you been working at Forgotten Empires?
So my first workday was in May 2022, so about 2.5 years
Nice.
almost.
And do you have any formal game development experience?
Not formal, no, just I made mods and maps for the old game, and that was my informal experience into
Okay.
this.
And that carried over that experience with the old game, like it's the same language or something like that?
Yeah, it did. The scripting language obviously it's been updated to have a lot more functionality, but at its core, it's still uh, XS, which is C sharp derived,
Okay, well
and
that's
the
handy.
data itself is also still very much the same format.
Well, that's very handy for you. And what was your first role with Forgotten Empires?
My first role was a QA tester.
Hmm.
In fact, I did some prep work for Retold, but I mostly worked QA for Age of Empires 2 at the start until work for Retold became more, um, there was more to test rather. So yeah, I started as QA and eventually moved towards design as I had a lot of experience with the gameplay of the old game. So it made a lot of sense for me to be also involved with design, and that's where I am now.
Okay, nice. Um, what is your favorite design change between the legacy version of the game and Retold?
It's got to be the ability to freely cast any abilities, like especially things that you can target on the ground, like Anubites, jumping, etc. That's definitely my favorite change.
Yeah, the Anubites one was big, right? Like that opened, I guess, the doorway to a lot of different plays with the Anubis now.
Yeah, for sure.
What was your favorite god in Legacy?
Um, I would say it has to be Poseidon. I've played that god probably the most. I mained it for like a year, so that will be it. But I obviously play random god even today.
And you play random god today, but do you have a favorite god in Retold?
Yeah, from all the new redesigns, I think Oranos probably has the most interesting set of new bonuses. I think the free extra myth unit and the time shifting, especially with the new upgrade, is incredibly interesting, and I really enjoy that. So
Yeah,
yeah, Kronos.
Kronos. Okay. Okay. Were there any crazy design decisions while developing Retold that were trialed but have since been removed? So they didn't make it to the release of the game?
Yeah, so the biggest one that I can think of was it's basically called the tiered town center. What this does, well, first I should explain the goal. The goal was to make going second town center um, not as high of a barrier, but also not make it too good, so people wouldn't do it too often. Um, and the basic principle of it was that a town center works at a reduced rate until there is buildings nearby that boost the rate back up. So, for example, if you have 5 nearby buildings, then the town center would start working or training villagers faster. And if you have 10, then it would train villagers basically at normal speed. And that was kind of the design.
Okay, so that must have that if that had been implemented, I guess that would have really changed the way that Retold works, right? Like it would have been a very different game.
Yeah, for sure. It would have a lot of knock-on effects, and yeah, we ended up scrapping it in the end because it just didn't feel like a good mechanic. Like maybe this could be something for maybe a major god bonus or something, right? A bit more specific to a certain god to change the playstyle like that, but for all civs to have to do that, it didn't feel right.
Yeah, and there would be some civs who would find that task easier. Like, would houses count? Like, do free buildings count in that design, or is it
Yeah,
only? Oh, really?
I would say every building counted. In fact, I think the only buildings we had to exclude were obelisks and farms.
Okay,
But
wow.
yeah, it's just a lot of things to think about, and like a lot of exclusions will have to be made to the system as well to make it fair. It just didn't work out.
Yeah. Um, what is your favorite new quality of life feature?
Quality of life feature. Let's see. I mean, coming from the old game, there was a lot of mechanical limitations. So while I think being able to tap cycle through buildings is, even though that's like standard in modern RTS, it wasn't in the old game. And just having that now in Age of Mythology just feels like a major improvement to the controls you have. I would say that for me is the biggest quality of life feature that Retold introduced.
Yeah, yeah, I really like that as well. Like, it makes it a lot easier to produce from my buildings. Like, I don't need to have like a million different control groups and things like that. Just one control group
Yeah.
or shift click them, it's fine. The buildings, and then just train from them. How are we going in this game? They've just got to the classical age. Okay, we're way ahead. Okay, a question for you. Do you play with legacy hotkeys or the new grid style hotkeys?
I am a grid lover. I played with grid in Age of Empires 4 when that released, although there were some parts of that system that I still would have liked to change, and that was not easy either in the grid style, but I'm pretty much almost exclusively default hotkey user in Retold. It just I'm used to it. It works.
How much influence did you have on like the hotkeys in Retold?
Um, yeah, I was definitely involved in the process of hotkeys myself. I'm not the only one, of course, but
Yeah, it's not a
yeah,
one man show.
I
Um,
had some input here and there, yes.
okay. So as a player, oh no, I'm losing units. As a player, what is the biggest gameplay challenge between Legacy and Retold?
Because gameplay challenge, I think for me, at least, it has to be naval gameplay. It's just, I mean, there's many differences between the old game that could make the game harder and also easier with both live features, but being able to manage and produce 3 different types of ships on the water, especially on maps like Anatolia, where there's 2 sides of water, and managing all of that is incredibly challenging gameplay wise.
Because
And
you used to
I,
be really good at the water micro, right? Especially on maps like Mediterranean. Is it now a
yeah, I
nice
very much,
challenge? Sorry.
yeah, I've I very much enjoyed the old Legacy style water micro, where it's just arrow pullback micro. But it's also very one dimensional, and it's just one thing, and that decides the whole game. It wasn't very strategically interesting. But microing was interesting, so. And that aspect at least was more simplified, so you could focus more on micro, because you also could auto queue your ships.
Yeah, yeah, true. I mean, in these games versus AI, we could auto queue our ships as well, right?
That depends. I don't think the setting is on.
Oh, I thought it was on. Oh, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. We don't have a water map. Okay. Um, as a developer, what was the biggest design challenge of Retold?
Ooh, biggest design challenge. Um, okay, I think probably, and this was something that took a lot of time to really figure out, and even now we're not even 100% sure if this is the best way it could have been, but it would have been the village center design. The ability to place a basically weaker town center not on the socket, so back on just free placement basically. It's a it's basically a hybrid between, Age of Empires town centers and still maintaining sockets as they are in Age of Mythology.
Yeah, okay. Um, what are your favorite units in Retold?
Favorite units in Retold? I think just visually and sound-wise, I think the Minotaur is just super cool. I really like that unit. The new sounds on it are absolutely fantastic. Um, Gameplay-wise, I think Satyr, as well as the Avenger actually, but Satyr, I just really enjoy the special attack it has, just piercing a bunch of javelins. Just looks very satisfying. Avenger, I think, is also very interesting because it's a Beyblade. It can just spin to win, and it looks very funny.
So it's all myth
And then,
units.
yeah, favorite units. I mean, it has to be right. It can't just say, "Oh, it's a hoplite. Yeah, it's a dude
Yeah,
with a
that's
spear."
that's boring. True, very
Yeah,
true.
maybe a hero here and there, but nah, the myth units are the coolest.
Um,
And
yeah, go on. Sorry.
yeah, my favorite new myth unit is the Draugr, the new Freya classical age. Well,
Oh
Ulr's
yeah, the
classical age. But
archer, the undead archer, or is it dead archer?
yeah, it's I guess it's more like a zombie kind of thing, but Norse mythology based zombie.
Okay.
It's kind of what that is.
So it is based on actual Norse mythology then, the Draugr?
Yeah, it is. It
Yep.
is.
Okay. And what's your favorite new god power?
It's got to be Inferno. It just looks so cool.
That's the one with the long charge of the fire and then the ball of explosion at the end, right?
Yeah, the flaming wolf.
Yeah. Okay. What do you think is the most improved god power from Legacy to Retold?
Improved. I think Carnivora in the old game felt really underwhelming. I think we've improved the gameplay on that a bit more. I mean, it's obviously still a classical age god power, so there's only so much it should be able to do, but I feel like it's a lot more interesting now. And I think the meteor, I think also that like I know in terms of the balance right now, meteor is a bit of a hot topic, but the it's such a fun god power, and now that it actually consistently deals damage, I think that makes it so much better. Might need some balance iterations, but we'll see.
Yeah, speaking of the big hitting god powers like that, why was the damage cap on things like Earthquake and all that removed? So there used to be a damage cap, right? Like it would hit a cap and it would stop doing damage, but that's been removed and it just does non-stop damage, right, until the god power ends. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the thing is, I think a lot of people, and I'm not necessarily speaking about competitive players here, felt it was just a bit odd that suddenly a tornado stops dealing damage, and it's rather arbitrary of a limitation. Now, obviously, we kind of know why that was done. That was to balance the god powers, right? But I think gameplay-wise, it just doesn't really make like visually, it's also very disconnecting. Like you can just have units running around under a tornado. It doesn't make sense. So we decided to remove that, and instead we want to approach balance differently through just its raw potential damage, obviously, and also just through god power, costs, and cooldowns and stuff like that.
Yeah, that would have been my next question. If you've removed this damage cap, how do you now balance it? But yeah, that makes sense if you just, I guess, tweak the raw power and the cooldowns and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna make a town center. Do. What is your favorite new map, or what map has improved the most since Legacy?
Hmm. Most improved map, and all credit here goes to Rebels Rising on this one, is the Unknown. Um, I think, well, the Unknown and Land Unknown is basically the same thing, but the Unknown is the core map. It's just gone through so much levels of iteration and polish compared to the original version of that map. Some may know that Rebels Rising even made a similar kind of map on the old game, competitive Mega Random. It's very much a bit like that, but it's a lot more. I don't know. In Retold, there's just so much more stuff you can do, and it's so much more exciting, and I think it looks fantastic. And for my favorite new map, I think Elysium was. It's maybe a bit more on the boring side gameplay wise, but I think visually it looks really cool.
Wait, which one's
This
Elysium
is
again? Is that the like Mount Olympus one, or am I thinking of something different?
no, Elysium is the one where you've got the little ponds with gold in them and the forest around that.
Oh yeah. I do know that one. Yeah, that one's very pretty to look at.
Yeah, yeah, those are my two picks.
Okay.
Maybe in the future there will be more maps to
Yeah,
consider for
yeah,
this.
exactly. The possibilities are limitless, especially with, like you said, Rebels Rising working on the team. He's such a good map maker.
Yeah.
Did you help make the maps?
I did. I made a couple of them, like 10 to 15 or so. Mostly the newer maps, although Elysium was, I believe, Rebels Risings.
Ah, so full
But
credit to
yeah, I
him.
did. Yeah, I did also help just fix up minor issues here and there, but majority was definitely Rebels Rising.
I'm trying to find gold on the map. You're taking all my gold mines. So
I want to
greedy.
out of it. It's
Okay.
so much gold.
What is your favorite new or updated technology?
Up technology. Yeah, okay. One idea that I think ended up working out really well and really interestingly was Loki's Eyes in the Forest tech. So it's super cheap tech, but the amount of vision that gives you when you use it right is insane, and it's it's so cool how it actually works the way it does. So, in case you don't know, the way it works is all your units will now make nearby trees or other nature objects like animals uh, give you vision. So if you walk past a tree, it will remain like an object that gives you vision for some time until it eventually goes away. So if you're walking across the map with an army, you're leaving behind a path of vision, and I think that just looks super interesting.
Yeah, because I think I was casting. Oh, I didn't. I've walked past those. I think I was casting a tournament game with you, and someone was playing Loki, and they didn't end up getting the Eyes of the Forest, Eyes in the Forest, sorry, upgrade during their game. And I think we were both yelling at the screen, "Get the upgrade! We want to see." But I think a lot of players just don't recognize maybe the potential in that not God power, the technology.
Yeah, and obviously a lot of people coming from Legacy, they won't realize it's even been reworked, right?
Yeah,
They just think, oh, it's that tech that gives +3 line of sight for infantry. It's like, whatever.
yeah, exactly. I'm gonna heal up my big beetle. Um, so, as a Forgotten Empires developer, what does a typical day look like for you as a technical designer?
Um, I mean, the first thing obviously is just make sure there's nothing urgent that happened that day. So I just start the day checking, see if there's any urgent things that happened, announcements, etc. Then I go on and check to see if there's anything new that's been assigned to me on my task list, anything I should look at, because I work a lot with the data. So while I'm a technical designer, I do work a lot with the data of games, so I do fix a lot of bugs in that sense. A lot of things I also do, obviously, as a designer, but that indirectly also means playtester. So I have playtesting sessions with either myself or other designers or balanced playtesters when we did have those.
Is that like the funnest part of your day or your job?
Uh, I mean, yeah, I guess you could say that, probably, yeah.
Isn't that the dream for any game developer? Like, develop a game and you just get to play it all day?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely not how it always goes, but now that the game is out and playable, that's definitely a great part of it. But a lot of this playtesting is also very specific. I mean, sometimes it's not, but uh, I'm looking to see if a bug was fixed or if I fixed a bug properly or the specific design change that we want to test is properly implemented, that kind of thing. Which is probably not as exciting as actually just playing the game as you would normally, but still, it's fun.
If you need an extra hand, I can help you out with that. Okay, so let's talk about some of the balance changes and gameplay designs that have been made that are different from the legacy version of the game. So, firstly, why did you remove insta kill unit abilities? For example, Mummies, Medusa, and Perseus all had insta kill abilities in Legacy, but not anymore.
Right. So, there's definitely a good reason for this. In the Legacy game, these choices, the minor gods that unlocked the myth units that had those abilities, were often mandatory in many matchups against, for example, a Colossus. If a Greek goes Colossus, then if you don't go Mummy, you just effectively lose long term. You
Yeah.
just cannot win.
Yep, yep.
The power of that you just couldn't deal with that. So part of that design decision was to just give a bit more counterplay directly to heroes, but remove the mandatory requirement of needing those abilities. So priests and pharaohs deal divine damage, which means now that they're actually a bit better against Colossus than they were in the old game because they ignore the armor. Means they don't actually need the one-shot myth unit. And now the Mummy does something else. It actually does a lot of damage, or it can do a lot of damage against groups of units with the curse, basically.
Yeah, I like the Mummy rework. It is a lot of fun, especially if you hit a juicy curse. Like if something's already really
Yeah.
damaged and you hit the curse on a bunch of units. Yeah, it's really nice. Okay, and why did the team decide to introduce the freely placed village centres in addition to the settlement socket and static town centres that existed in Legacy?
So yeah, I think I touched on village centers a little bit earlier. But the reasoning why we wanted to add it was because there's clearly quite a demand for being able to place town centers freely. But at the same
Yeah.
time, if we just remove settlement sockets entirely, I think you're really taking away a core part of what made AOM AOM.
Yeah, it is super
So
unique with the settlement sockets, right? Like none of the other Age series do it. Is there any other RTS that even do it like this?
sort of. I mean, they work fundamentally differently, but for example, I think Spellforce has a similar system in place where you have sections that you can expand into, but there's a lot more of them, and the maps are not randomly generated, so there's a lot of different components to that that don't really make it translatable to an Age game.
Yeah. Because I know a lot of people that come from the other Age series, when you see them trying out like the old Legacy version of AOM, they're like, why can't I build a town centre wherever I want? What is this? Why am I so restricted in this regard?
Yeah, and to be fair, there is certainly like a lot of appeal to a turtling kind of boomy playstyle. It's definitely a bit of catering to that audience as well.
Yeah, it's definitely my favorite style of play. I like to just get my cities big and healthy, and then I can go and attack.
And at the same time, it does still like it's been balanced in such a way where it's kind of not necessarily as good as a normal settlement, but it's certainly not out of the question to ever see them in normal gameplay as well.
Yeah, I've definitely seen them in like when I'm watching some ladder games, like some high ranked players playing, or even in the tournament. I'm sure we saw some village center plays. Like, didn't someone go for like a two village centers in their base sort of play, or maybe that was a game I watched recently on the ladder. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of more options and variety in the way you play the game now with the village centers.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Yep.
I'm running into it all the time on ladder, so well,
Okay.
not all the time, but frequently enough to know that it's not useless.
Oh, you're going for just a pure throwing X-Men army here.
Yeah, I went Njord.
Okay,
I
so
don't think that helps me. I should have gone Scotty, but
what are we up to? Why did you change the ox cart from being trained in the town centre to being buildable by gatherers and dwarves?
um, this was kind of done as a bit of a quality of life improvement for playing Norse. It was often quite tedious to do ox cart. Like if you were aging up, for example, and you just lost your ox cart on your gold mine, you can't remake it for like a whole minute. It just doesn't feel fun, right? And I think just making it buildable by villagers made a lot of sense.
Yeah, yeah, it was definitely a pain. Like if you lost your town centre and you had a heap of villages and you lost your ox carts, you had no more economy. You just couldn't bounce back. Like, and if you got
Yeah.
raided, you had to send an ox cart from your town centre to replace the one you lost. Yeah. On the same vein, why have you allowed the gatherers and dwarves to build houses now?
Yeah, I mean it's on the same vein. It's also a quality of life improvement, and it's just because there's a bit of a, and this is a part of the Norse design, obviously, but there's a bit of a snowball effect. If Norse is losing, they will just keep losing because if they're falling behind, they're going to lose buildings. And then they have to build buildings with army, which means they can't defend the buildings that already exist, and they fall more behind. Just being able to build houses helps alleviate that point just a little bit, so that, for example, you get earthquaked, you can just rebuild all the houses with your villagers instead of with the military if you want to. But in theory, it's still better to do it with military because then you're not idling your economy, right? So it's
Yeah,
still a trade-off,
yeah,
but it's
definitely.
a quality of life improvement.
Yeah, it's a nice one. It's one I forget as well all the time. Like, I'll be housed as Norse and I just forget to use my villagers to build the house. But I'll keep working on it. Oh, we did it. Nice.
GG.
All right, we can load up the next game and start the next lot of questions.
All right.
Okay, if you want to host and
Yep.
invite me, and I'll keep with the questions as well. So tell me about the Greek hero roster. For example, why are all Greek heroes now situationally ranged? So if they're fighting melee, they'll be melee unless they're a ranged hero. But if they're fighting like a flying unit, they now have a ranged attack. And why are all the pure ranged heroes now not available in the classical age, but instead the heroic age?
Yeah, that was also quite a big change, I think. We effectively gave all Greek heroes that weren't ranged a ability. It has an icon and everything to show it can shoot at flying units. Um, and the reason why we made this change was because Greeks only had one ranged hero to actually deal with flying units. And while obviously that hero on its own was fairly decent, he could only be in one place at a time. So flying units could be very easily
Yeah.
abused, so to speak, against Greeks. So we decided to add that option in. The non-ranged heroes are obviously a lot worse at actually shooting at flying units, like DPS wise. But just the fact that they can at least makes it a little bit more bearable to deal with those flying units when massed.
Yeah, it definitely was a pain point in the old version of the game. Like Stymphalian birds, if they were massed, like the Greeks just had so much trouble dealing with it. Nidhogg, things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a nice change. Onto the
And
Egyptian. Yeah, sorry.
your second point was about the Greek hero roster itself changing,
Oh yeah.
right?
Yep, yep, yep. Thank you.
Yeah, so on that we basically moved the actual ranged hero from H2 to H3 and moved the H3 hero down to H2. And the main reason for that is simply that the ranged hero kind of just shuts down so many things from the opponent that early in the game through having such a long range and being so powerful that swapping it out for a melee hero at least means that they have to come into melee range to actually put on damage early. Now, at the same time, those melee heroes are a little bit stronger, I think, than the ranged ones. So they still have a lot of that oppressive nature to them regardless. But in the old game, you could very much just plant your Odysseus just outside, but just within the gold mine range, and then just harass villagers on your opponent's gold mine, and that just didn't feel fair, really. It just felt wrong.
You
So
mean
that's why
on
that
the
was
gold
changed.
mine inside their base, sort of thing?
Yeah, they're starting gold mine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. We're both playing Egyptian this game, so I've got an Egyptian question for you. Let me build my obelisk. Okay, in Legacy, the monuments were primarily used for gathering favour, except obviously for the Isis with the god power blocking. Why do the Egyptian monuments now all have special abilities, such as the healing from Isis, the cheaper Migdol and barracks units from Set, and the Ra's empowerment aura? Why has that been changed?
Um, so we very much felt as a design team as a whole that monuments for Egyptians were kind of a missed opportunity for base building mechanics. Isis being about the only one who really actually had that through god power blocking. Um, so we decided to see if we could expand that and apply that to all the Egyptian gods, so they all have a component of base building, right? And base building is fun, right? I
It
think.
is. Yeah, definitely. You have to make decisions about where you're actually going to put this building, not just slap it down anywhere or whatever. Like with Ra, you really
Yeah,
have to. I do so much maths in the beginning of the game when I'm playing as Ra. Like, oh, where can I put my monument so it covers every resource possible? Yeah, yeah. It's
yeah.
makes it more fun, definitely.
And that was the main goal. And some of the effects are a bit more important than others. Like obviously set monuments are a bit more simple. They just always apply. They don't need empowerment to be in effect. And but the Ra one especially I think has the most like wide-reaching effects potentially.
Yeah. My next question. In Legacy, Pestilence prevented buildings from training units for the duration of the god power. Now it slows unit production and stops all nearby buildings except the town centre from shooting arrows. Why was this changed? You took my sheep.
Um
You took my goat.
oh, did I take yours? Oh, I'll give it to you.
Thanks.
To to answer your question, I think there was a rather one-dimensional way that pestilence was actually used in the old game. So we wanted to see if we could change it without taking a step too far away from it, although maybe it has, I don't know. But we want to try and see if we could make it not just only viable in the early game and make it actually useful late game as well, or not necessarily late game, but later on in the game as well. And being able to make buildings stop shooting, I think, can allow you to be able to push into somewhere that has been heavily fortified and take a fight there, which you otherwise probably wouldn't be able to take. And I think that might open up ways to actually save Pestilence for a later time and use it well.
Yeah, in Legacy it was very one dimensional when you used it, right? Like a water map, great, you cast it on the dock straight away, sort of thing. But maybe
Yeah.
now you actually have to think a bit more about when to use it, and the decision making is always good. Like we were talking about the monuments being a decision making tool. It's the same now for pestilence, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Um, okay, ceasefire. So ceasefire is now a much shorter duration, and towers and fortresses are still buildable during this god power. This was not possible during Legacy. So why has this one changed?
Yeah, so ceasefire is probably the most, I don't know about most, but one of the most controversial, I guess, god powers, because it's pretty much just the ultimate anti-fun god power, right? Like you have this epic thing, like you're casting flaming weapons, or I don't know, you're doing something like that, and it just stops you from using it and completely counters that god power. So we wanted to see if we could make ceasefire still a thing, but not have it be such a dominant kind of thing in normal games that just prevents things. So we cut the duration to 30 seconds, and at the same time as well, regarding the um, buildings, it being only 30 seconds, I don't think means it matters so much that you have to actually explicitly prevent production of towers and fortresses. And it also felt often kind of confusing, like why was it not building at all? I mean, yes, ceasefire, but that's not very intuitive.
Yeah, true.
So we decided to change it and see how it goes. And I think it's fine.
Yeah, I haven't seen. I mean, yeah, it's definitely better now that it doesn't just completely nullify like you were saying flaming weapons or something like that. That was just a pain, right? Like you'd have to play around ceasefire, and that just wasn't that fun to have to play
Yeah.
around another god power with your own god
Yeah, I
power.
mean, it's an H2 god power, and it was preventing H3 or sometimes even H4 god powers from doing anything.
Yeah,
So
very true.
that didn't feel very fair in a way.
Okay. Um, why did you introduce rechargeable god powers, and how do you determine their recharge cost and cooldown?
Um, I think this was probably the most demanded feature for Retold from the community, or just from players in general. Like, this god power is great. Why can't I use it again? Like, why not? Let me just use it again, right?
Yeah, true. Wait, are
And
we? Oh, we're still playing moderate. Why are they attacking me? Yep, keep talking. I have to do some work.
I got some snakes if you need. Um, oh yeah, I'm being attacked as well.
Oh
Oh
my
boy.
god. Oh boy. Oh boy. Yep. Sorry. Keep going. We were talking about. We were talking about rechargeable god powers.
Yeah. Where was I?
Sorry.
I lost my train of thought. I also need to make units. This is a
This is a
surprise attack.
disaster. How dare they attack
Um,
us?
maybe time for mercenaries. Good unit.
Oh my god. I'm losing.
Yeah, rechargeable gold powers. I think. God, where was I?
Such a hard game.
Should have just made new units from the beginning.
Yeah, you were saying that the players themselves were like, "Why can't I use this god power again? This god power is awesome. Why can't I use it again?"
Right. Yeah. So there was a bit of that thought process of, well, if you only have one god power, you're just gonna save it. And then at some point the game ends, you haven't even cast the god power. That feels
Ah, because you're
not
saving. I do
fun.
that. I do that in other games as well. Like in the Final Fantasy series, I save all my potions until the final boss, and then I have like
Then you
999
never use
potions.
it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah,
that's kind of one of the reasons why we did this to, give a little bit more. It's not like, oh, you've cast it bad, you can never cast it again for this game. So you can still cast it. It's still costly to recast, so you still have to be smart about how you use it. But at least you're not missing out so much. Like you can still go again. So that
yeah.
was the main reason, I think. And yeah, I think it worked out quite well.
Okay. Why did you decide to give all minor gods a water myth unit? So previously there was only certain minor gods that had a water myth unit, and if you're on a water map, maybe I'm answering my own question here. If you're on a water map, you always go that minor god. So now any minor god can get it, right?
Yeah, well, the thing is, you're looking at it the wrong way. It's not the minor gods that give it. It's just heroic age gives you that, right? It's not really tied to minor gods at all in any way.
But in Legacy it
So
was, right?
yeah, in Legacy it
Yeah,
was, but
yeah.
we've changed it so it
Yeah,
it
that's
no
what I'm
longer is.
referring to. Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, I mean, you did say it already that the decision on the water maps, like Njord just goes up in value so much because you get a free Kraken, and Njord should be viable on land maps too, right? Even though he is the god of the storms, I get that, but it's still it should be a viable pick, and I think we've definitely changed that so that it is viable on land maps and water maps equally. And that was the goal, for that to be equally viable.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a nice change. They're all nice changes. What was the Gaia Lush bonus in Legacy, and what is the bonus now, and how did it change, and why did it change?
Yeah, so Gaia Lush bonus in Legacy was pretty much just prevent an opponent from building in this area. Um, what this also means is it prevents already buildings that are under construction
Mm.
to stop working, which I think a lot of people would agree that this was not very fun mechanically.
No,
It
so
kind of goes back to Ceasefire in a way, where it's just an anti-fun mechanic.
yeah, for people who weren't aware who didn't play Legacy, like if you saw someone building a town center, Gaia would just run a citizen over and build like a manor or an economic guild on top of that town center, and that player could no longer build that town center, and it was such a pain.
Yeah.
But yeah. And what does Gaia now do?
Yeah, so the new bonus is by default, every unit and building regenerates one hit point per second, which inherently means that fighting on your Lush gives you a lot more power in that fight because all your units are taking or well healing 1 HP per second during the fight. And on top of that, you now have the upgrade channels for Gaia that allows your units to traverse 15% faster on Lush. So I think especially towards the mid and late game, you want to start lushing up the whole map everywhere as much as you can and get those upgrades and just benefit from 15% more speed.
Yeah, yeah,
I think it's
that's
a lot
very
more
useful.
interesting.
Yeah, definitely. More interesting for both players as well, right? Not just blocking buildings.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if your opponent has just better units, like that's something to deal with. But it's just not fun when your opponent just stops you from building something.
Yeah.
Like, why is that the case? I was building here the whole time, and now I can't. Yeah.
Um, so we talked about Gaia, but what about Oranos? So what was Oranos' bonus in Legacy, and what is it now? And why did you change it?
Yeah, Oranos probably underwent the largest shift in gameplay. So his old bonus was your all your units, well, all your human units and heroes, not myth units, would move 10% faster. And this was a very, very powerful bonus, combined with Shockwave
Yeah.
and just Atlantians as they were back then, means that Oranos was an incredibly oppressive rating-based civ that actually played incredibly one-dimensionally because of this. His other bonuses was just settlement line of sight and having sky passages, and that's definitely one thing that we wanted to focus on more, and that's the sky passage. We feel like that was such a missed opportunity gameplay wise that should really be a much more fundamental part of Oranos' gameplay. So we tried to make it a lot more useful early game.
Yeah, I really like the Sky Passage changes. Like, there's a lot you can do with that. You can either, like, I don't know, use it to go out hunting somewhere that may not be safe, or you can use it to get an
Yeah.
offensive advantage on your opponent. Like, there's a lot more done with that. Plus the fact they're like free now, right? So that's
Yeah.
huge. It used how much did it used to cost in Legacy?
It used to cost, I think of memory, and I'm not 100%, but I think it's 200 wood, 150 gold, and 3 favor.
Yeah, you
And
rarely
now it
saw
just
them.
costs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, go on. Yeah,
And now it just costs 5 favor,
yeah,
nothing else, and build time, which was also reduced, I believe, in the recent patch. So
yeah, nice. Because, yeah, like, yeah, I was saying, you rarely saw them in Legacy, like, because you had to build two, obviously. So, how many resources that you've already spent just to get two up and running? Yeah,
706 favor.
yeah, it's a lot, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I still think they did have their place in deep late game, but like that's way too late for a major god bonus, right? Like it should have to come in a bit earlier than that, surely,
Yeah,
I
for
would
sure.
think. So now it does.
Okay. For Poseidon, why did you decide to make the lure a drop site?
Um, so I know Poseidon right now in the meta is very dominant. So I just want to say that at the time when we made this decision, Poseidon just felt like a very lacking civ. It didn't have that much going for it. And giving him a drop side in lure actually allowed a lot of interesting tempo and build order improvements that we felt fitted this god. And we felt like Poseidon's identity is definitely a bit tempo driven, like faster cavalry myth units. Even the market bonus allows for some tempo. So yeah, I think we thought this design was quite fitting and we went for it. And it, yeah.
Um, okay. I'm getting attacked here. I'm getting doubled. I can't handle this.
You're getting doubles? Oh no.
Doubled. Let's use our god powers. I've got shifting sands. I'm gonna shift you.
I'm just gonna vision the whole map.
Yeah. There we go. We're using our god powers. We're doing it. We're doing Age of Mythology stuff. Let's get back to the questions. Okay, we're playing it against a what are we playing against here? Kronos here. So I've got a Atlantian question for you. Tell me about the behemoth directional armor, and do many people know about the behemoth directional armor?
Yeah, I mean it's a bit of a bit more hidden ability, I would say. So I don't think that many people really know about it. It's not something that's visually noticeable in game, but basically what it does is the behemoth takes 50% less damage when attacked from the front. So if it's facing its target, that target will deal 50% less damage to the behemoth. And it will deal normal damage from the back or the sides. Um, yeah, that's how that works. We just felt like that was an interesting change because Behemoth just wasn't really that special. Like it was just, yeah, it's each unit with regeneration or something. It's okay. Still regenerates, but I feel like it could use something a bit more interesting and mechanically unique.
But does something like the Scarab have the same? Because I mean, Scarab has that death poison, right? But Scarab's also kind of just a siege unit.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with the siege units, but I mean, Scarabs having that on death rattle kind of thing does make it already a lot more interesting, right?
Fun, yeah. And I guess
Especially
Behemoth,
visually.
yeah, Behemoth is like an big armored unit, isn't he? So
Yeah.
yeah, that armor change does make a bit of sense. Uh, uh, uh. And we talked about damage caps being removed. Locust. I went Locust, didn't I? Yes, I went Locust. Why was the Locust changed? In Legacy, I loved playing with Locust. It only did damage to economical units. It didn't damage your whole armies or anything, but it was a lot stronger. So now it's a bit weaker, I think, but it damages your whole army, right? Like the opponent's whole army. Why has that changed?
Yeah, so Locust has been changed so that it actually travels through a path now rather than just on a location, which allows you to target it better as well. But the core change here is that it doesn't actually hurt villagers as much as it did in the old game. Um,
Yeah,
because in the old game, Locust was kind of a bit of an RNG insta win fest, or it did nothing, and I don't think that's really good. Like got power design that it can do that. So we wanted to make it bit better against other stuff rather than just villagers. Initially that was just farms, but just being able to use it against units as well allows for more options to like secure a second gold mine or something like that. Just to be able to win a fight, at least against someone who isn't also using another god tower.
Yeah, I have been using it obviously against armies, but it has been nice when I see a fight where I could just tip the balance, like just tip the scales in my favor, and then I'll cast the Locust, and it will be enough to sort of tip the balance there. So that is nice for sure. Um,
Yeah.
do you plan to change any of the god powers in the near future?
Well, change, balance iteration will certainly happen. I would definitely expect some of that. But as for like changing them entirely, redesigning them, I think that's not sure. I mean, it's not off the table, but there's nothing planned as of right now regarding that. So I think that just depends on how much that's needed and there's time and space for that.
Yeah. Do you have vision? I want to use my tornado somewhere.
Yes.
Thanks. Oh no, he's got a citadel. Is it going to be enough? I don't think so.
I use my tornado on his back DC. There we go.
Ooh. How did you get so much vision?
It's one god power.
Yeah, I know, it's a lot of vision.
Vision.
Yeah, vision.
OP.
Okay, why did you change the Norse Ulfsark name, and why did you introduce the Godi and Herdman?
Yeah, the Norse Ulfsark Berserk is now his name is mostly just a thing because Ulfsarks as a name were just stitched together between a Berserk and an Ulfhedin.
What's that?
The narrative team, Ulfhedin is it's a name for a unit, a status or a role of a person back in Norse society, I think. I mean, the narrative team ultimately decides these changes, so yeah, I wouldn't say that I made these changes, but that's just what I've been
Yeah,
what I
that's
understood.
fair.
As for the actual gameplay units that have been added, like Herdman and Godi, the reason why they've been added, as well as the Great Hall building to go with it, is because we felt like the Norse civilization as a whole just felt a bit lacking, a bit emptier than the other civs. So we felt like a new building and some new units is very justified, and honestly, I feel like they fit quite well into the roster. Yeah, just Norse content lacking. That's the main reason.
Yeah, I, I feel like I know what you're getting at because in Legacy I didn't enjoy playing Norse that much. I just felt their classic age always felt exactly the same. You always made the same units. If you were Loki, you had her Civ, but if you're other Civ, you just go raiding Cav and maybe some throwing axemen. But it just felt, I don't know, very stale. But now I actually enjoy playing Norse, like the quality of life features you mentioned earlier with Norse, like the ox carts and the
Yeah,
house building, plus the new units. Like there's much more variety. There's much different ways to play it now.
yeah,
Oops,
for
I
sure.
hear
And
someone resigned. Yeah,
yeah, the AI is done.
he's giving up.
Yeah, I think the Godis being like a ranged variation of the Herser is also very interesting. It's still balanced in that way where it's not really meant to be that good as a normal range unit.
No, but
But
against the flying myth units, oh, it was desperately needed, right? Like the only other option for Norse previously was throwing axemen, and they just didn't have the myth unit like damage multiplier, so they just weren't strong enough to deal with the mass flying units. So yeah, this is definitely a welcome change.
yeah,
Um, so extended edition for those who played it introduced unique units for different pantheons: the Kopesh for Egyptian, the Healer for Greek, the Bogsveiger for Norse, and the Onager for Atlanteans. Why were these not brought back for Retold?
Yeah, there's definitely a bit of a topic, but we decided against bringing them back because they didn't quite fit in well into the existing rosters. They didn't have any flavor to them. Like there's no technologies affecting them other than introducing a Kopesh line upgrade, basically mandatory. But there was no unique upgrades affecting them, and they just felt out of place, and that's why we decided to just not include those units.
Yeah, makes sense. Could you have fit the Bogsviger in? I guess Godi has sort of replaced the Bogsviger, right?
Yeah, basically, yeah. I mean, the role of the Boxfeiger was effectively a Jarl that is like a ranged soldier, but we wanted it more like a Herseer, so it's only good against mid units, rather than also being just a backline archer, which is not what we wanted to give to Norse. I mean, it could still function that way. It's just a lot worse than the Boxfeiger would have been.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. Let's. You want to host the next game?
Sure.
Should we make it lightning? Let's do a
Sure.
lightning game. Mix it up. Okay. Uh, my next question for you. The Titans can now walk through water, walls, and building foundations. Why did you make these changes?
Um, well, the very first thing there of walking through walls, I think was by far the most requested functionality from a Titan. Like playing on an island and making a Titan, just it was pointless. You couldn't move off the island. It just felt super sad. So
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
yeah, so yeah, being able to do that now makes sense, and yeah, I feel like it definitely enhanced the gameplay of the Titan on those maps. For the other objects, like walls and foundations, it just felt like a Titan should be easily able to just like get through walls, right? Like it should just ignore them. You could just step over them. I mean, you can't really make it so that it
Yes,
genuinely
steps.
steps
Yeah.
over them, but it just destroying the wall outright felt appropriate. And foundations as well.
Yeah, why would a foundation
Foundations,
block? Yeah, yeah.
yeah. You could just walk through the foundation and destroy it by simply walking. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's definitely cool. And I remember in Legacy, you used to be able to block the Titan by just throwing foundations everywhere, like houses or granaries or something, just building them everywhere. And the Titan would be there stomping down foundations all day. Like, it was such a pain. Oh, I'm Ra? No, I'm Poseidon. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah,
I was
nah,
sick
I'm
of, I
right.
was sick of Egyptian. Okay. The Wonder used to be a win condition in Legacy. Why has this win condition been removed?
So the Wonder has always been a bit of a hit or miss kind of thing in the game that I think, I mean, some people may have liked, but I think a lot of people just felt it wasn't quite as exciting. It was just you build something and you sit on it for 10 minutes and then the game just randomly ends. Well, it's not random, but it's just nothing really tells you that the game should have ended other than a timer on screen, which is not very in-game kind of experience, right? So we wanted to see if we could change it so that it's a lot more interesting and exciting to actually end the game. And the Wonder Age is just that. It makes it's destabilizes the game so much that surely it should end sooner or later after you've completed one, but the investment to get there is so big that it's also not really that viable to get that one out unless you're like playing a super long game.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I've ever built one, to be honest, except in like my videos. But I've never built one in a legit game. But then again,
Yeah.
I never really built them in Legacy either.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people just, perhaps you included, just never really made it out of principle almost. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It
I
felt
don't
like a
know.
bit of a, I don't know,
It's just lame.
unfun
I don't
way
want
to
to make,
win. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. I forgot we were playing Lightning. I was like, oh, why is this so fast? Why have we got so much gold? And then I realized I remembered. Um, okay, why was hunting dogs removed?
Hunting dogs. Yeah. This was mostly done. as hunting dogs was effectively not a decision. It was a must. And if you didn't grab it, you basically have shot yourself in the foot so much that you may as well just resign and lose the game. So we felt like there was not really a reason to have a technology that is such a like you must have this. Why is it not just part of the base then? If it's so required to have it,
Yeah, it's
it just
very
felt like
true. Yeah. Yeah, if you forgot to get it, if you forgot to get it, is that a thing? Yeah, if you forgot to research it, you'd look at your granary at like the 4 minute mark. You'd be like, "Oh my god, I'm so far behind." Like yeah, like you say, you've lost at that point if you're playing any high level games.
yeah. And there's some extra things that not having it opens up. It means that switching to hunt on like a water map is also a lot easier to do and is totally fine. Like I think there's definitely a lot of positives that comes out of this. Even though I probably destroyed every legacy player's build orders.
Yeah, but I think the game in general probably destroyed a lot of that, right? Like the changes to the maps and the amount of food in base and all that. That's fine.
Yeah, but
It's
yeah,
it levels the
yeah,
playing field again.
yeah. I mean, I think there was quite some discussions on that on streams and stuff. But yeah, legacy players will certainly still have an advantage. It's just not quite as big as it would have been in some cases if we didn't change the hunting dogs and some other things.
Yeah, true. Okay, tell me about Freya. How was it created?
How was Freya created? Okay. Well, first we wanted to, well, we as in everyone involved in the development team wanted to experiment with the idea of expanding civs wide. So, an extra god for each pantheon. And it seems like a relatively safe option because the fundamentals are already there of the culture. So we just wanted to see how that goes and design something in that vein. So we kind of just started working on that, uh, theory crafting some ideas. The narrative team started out with some options for the gods themselves, major and minor, and then we tried to think of identities to follow that and then start designing bonuses around those identities. Oh, I'm getting crushed here by this by Arcantos.
Is this too hard?
Uh, um, but yeah, that's basically how we started, and is at that point, like once that's in place, once we have a vision for the major and minor gods, then we just start filling out the content. We want the tech tree, like add some extra unique text. What can we do? What makes sense? The god powers as well. Like we need to figure out what feels fun and is good to use and unique as well. It's important. And give it a different gameplay twist on the existing Norse gods as well by being a defensive god rather than typically the Norse is very raiding and offensive oriented.
Yeah, Freya's definitely like changed up how Norse is perceived, right? Like, yeah, definitely, it's nice having a more boomy defensive god for the Norse.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely people out there who are like, oh, I don't really like playing Norse because I don't really want to fight things in classical age. I don't want to raid. I just want to sit in my base and boom. And now
Yeah,
there is a Norse faction that lets you play Norse that way, and that just enables that way of playing Norse for those people.
yeah, I'm definitely glad it's not another aggressive Norse, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were there any Freya ideas that got scrapped?
Yeah, I can think of one major thing that was the case. Are you pinging me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the technology bonus Trey has where it research is slower but is cheaper.
Yes.
This effect used to also apply to aging up, meaning that the age up was cheaper, but also took twice as long.
Ouch.
And yeah, this was more of a negative than a positive. Like, yeah, you saved some villager training like food from villagers, but well, you save 200 food from aging up the classical, I mean, but at the same time, you're missing out on actually making villagers for like a whole minute. So you're 4 villagers behind initially. And the implications of that were so massive that we just felt like Freya just, I don't know, it just didn't feel fun at that point. So yeah, we scrapped that eventually, and I think that's for the best.
I can imagine Freya would have felt quite vulnerable as well with their slower age up time. Like, especially because they're already quite defensive, like, it takes ages for the technologies to get researched and all that. They would have felt very vulnerable, right?
Yeah, they did, and they were, and although part of that is by design, right? Like
Yeah.
they were meant to be defensive, but also if you let them boom, they get big rewards. So you actually have to kind of put pressure on them
Yeah.
because they have this really powerful, unique tech that gives their units a lot of HP, just all their units.
Yes.
And Golden Bursty itself also is very strong on its own, especially in later ages. So
Yeah.
uh, yeah.
Yeah, okay, interesting. Were there any surprise metas or gameplay cheese that emerged since the game was released? Have there been innovative ways to play a pantheon that you haven't even thought about as a designer that you've seen players like come up with?
Um, I think the most impressive thing I have seen is probably the way the Mista has used Ice's monuments. Um, I mean, in theory, that is exactly what it was meant to do, but it's just nobody's really done it until I've seen the Mista play with it, and that is building the monument forward and empowering it with a Pharaoh to prevent enemies from casting god powers on the Isis player's forward army, while also healing them, right? Because it's both a heal aura and god power blocking.
Yeah.
And just being able to consistently use that, deleting the first monument, the cheapest one, and rebuilding it like a step forward, and then every time just creeping up forward that way was incredibly interesting to see play out.
Yeah, I
And
did
that's not
watch that
something I've
game with
seen.
you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
was, yeah, and I think we were both saying, oh, why isn't his opponent casting like chaos or whatever? And then we were like,
yeah,
oh, the monuments are blocking it. Like we didn't even realize. Like, yeah, because you
yeah.
don't see it that often. The god power block being used offensively, not defensively, right?
Yeah, exactly. It does remind me a little bit of what people used to do in Legacy with Son of Osiris against Bolt, where they would try to push in with fort monuments to prevent Bolt ever applying to the Son of Osiris, and that in a way kind of worked, but
Yeah,
this was on another level.
yeah, it really was. Yeah. What will you do now that the game is released? How has your day-to-day job changed?
Um, what has my day-to-day job changed? I mean, honestly, not all that much. I also look more for feedback now on forums and Discords and all sorts of places, Twitch chats. So that's something I keep an eye out for additionally. Um, and also just actually playing the game online, with other people and just engaging that way is also how it's changed. Playtesting.
Yeah. Because you play on the ladder yourself, don't you?
Yeah, I very much play on the ladder. I think I think for someone who is involved in balancing the game, I feel like that's almost a must.
Where do you sit on the ladder currently, right now?
Uh, I'd have to look it up, but I think somewhere
That's right.
around top 60
Nice, well done.
may have changed, but yeah.
Um, is that how you get balance feedback then as well?
Yeah, in a way, like if something is clearly dominating the ladder, then I will notice that. Obviously, people will post on forums as well, confirming that belief. But yeah, if something is just just dominating the ladder, like everyone is playing, I don't know, set, then I can see that and experience that firsthand, and also have a better idea on what maybe should be done to nerf set if that is the case.
Yeah, that's nice that you're so involved sort of in the community and can really actually see what's going on, like on the ground level, I guess. It's important.
Yeah.
Um, if someone wanted to get a role like yours, how would they go about getting such a job?
Um, a role like mine, if you want to get into game development, like as a QA, that's how I started anyway, is you could certainly send an open application to, for example, Forgotten Empires. But I would certainly recommend first to look into what QA means and what that means, what that entails. Like figure out what that means first before just blindly applying,
Yeah,
right?
of course.
Um, if you have experience elsewhere designing things, you could probably also open apply as a designer. But if you haven't worked in game dev before, I'd say QA is probably the best entry. Now, if you know programming, though, I do definitely think that's probably the most in-demand job still for game dev.
Yeah.
So,
And what programming
uh,
languages are required, like for your role or for the role of AI or engineering with Retold?
yeah, so proper engineering would require probably C++ in most cases. I mean, this depends ultimately on the game, but the game that Age of Mythology is and runs on is coded in C++. So that will be a requirement, so to speak. For AI and maps well, I don't work on AI, but I work on maps, but they both use XS, which is a derivative of C sharp. So if you have experience in those aspects and you've modded on the game before or something, like you've spent some time on that, that could be an avenue as well. So yeah, that's my advice, I guess. If you have those skills or experiences, then there's definitely room.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's all the questions I had today. Oh, I have one bonus question for you. What is your favorite campaign hero?
Campaign hero. It's gotta be Ajax.
Ajax. Because he's funny. He's dopey, a bit of an idiot. Is that
Is
why?
a He's a comedic relief, right? It's
Yeah.
just funny. I don't
Okay.
understand. Does it fight? Yeah.
Yeah, okay. This has been great. Thank you for your time today. I hope you've given some answers to the community members who are looking for any answers on why is this like this now, or why is this map like this, or whatever, whatever. And I guess people can reach out to you. Maybe not. I'm sure you'll get bombarded with questions if I say that. But you're around. They might see you in the Twitch chat. They might see you on the forums. They might see you on Reddit. So Hagrit's very approachable. Everyone, you can reach out to him, but don't bombard him, please. So
Mm.
thank you again, Hagrit, for your time today. I hope you had fun.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I had. Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, bye.
Bye bye.